Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, and my wife will be joining us here shortly. So today you're expecting to have Dr. Josh Leavitt on our podcast, and he has been on our podcast before. And we ran out of time to talk about statins, cholesterol lowering medications on the last podcast he was on. We did talk about diabetes and the like. And he's a doctor that really believes the same thing that we believe in that most chronic disease does not need medication to treat it. So, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, many different diseases that you don't need medications to treat them long term. They are lifestyle related disease and thus can be reversed when your lifestyle has changed. So, check it out on our YouTube site, the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy YouTube channel, and just go into our channel and type in Dr. Josh Leavitt, and you will that his podcast will come up. So you don't want to miss when he is rescheduled. We're going to talk about statins, but Jan and I are going to talk about statins a little bit later when she joins us, and the cholesterol story. And are we getting the whole story? Is cholesterol causing heart attacks? Do statins prevent heart attacks? And the answers might surprise you because statins are definitely a very, very popular drug that many patients are on. And I will tell you that personally, I would never take one. And I would never recommend one to my immediate family. That is for sure, because there are many different ways to prevent heart attacks. And I don't think statins is the best way. So, but before we get into that, let's talk about our podcast tomorrow. So, our midweek podcast, which usually streams on a Thursday, is actually going to be on Tuesday. So, tomorrow at 8 a.m., you do not want to miss out. So, Gabriel Wrench, he has a very, very successful Twitter account. I'm actually surprised he hasn't been censored or banned yet, because he has a lot of hot topics and maybe controversial, or at least not really controversial, just truth. But in today's world, we aren't allowed to speak the truth very often without getting censored. So, and as you guys all know, or maybe do know, we've been censored before on YouTube a few times, and some podcast forums we've been censored on, and really what we were doing was just stating really honestly facts. And so we've had to go to some other platforms to get our word out there. And anytime we're going to discuss COVID at all, and we do not stream live on YouTube. We stream on Facebook Live, and you can catch us here on my personal Facebook page and the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy Facebook page. But we don't stream on YouTube anytime we're going to discuss that topic because we've been censored twice. But we do have it on Rumble. So you want to check out our Rumble account. And tomorrow we will be on Facebook only. We will not be on YouTube because of what Gabriel and I are going to be discussing. We're going to be discussing his story of how he got arrested. This is truth, and this went national. And Gabriel got arrested for singing outside, because singing, and he was singing a hymn, and singing it was illegal at the time in Moscow, Idaho. So we always hear about Moscow, Idaho, or Idaho in general as being a freedom loving state. Well, Moscow maybe not so much. So he actually got arrested for singing hymns. And we're going to be discussing that story. And we'll also be talking about mask mandates and vaccine mandates. So you don't want to miss that tomorrow, 8 to 9 a.m. It'll be live here on my Facebook account. And that's the only place, actually, because we will not be on YouTube. But you can catch it later on Rumble. Also, if you don't have Facebook, or your friends don't have Facebook, they can catch it on Rumble. So there'll be a link there that we'll share. So, Janet, welcome to our show. I was talking about how statins. We're going to talk about statins today, and Dr. Leavitt couldn't make it in. So if we can just jump in, and I'll let you try to kind of start off about maybe the history of statins. So tell us some of the history of statins, Janet, and what you know about it.
Well, first of all, we should probably start out with that heart disease is still the number one killer of Americans. And as we are going and as we progress through time, our problem with obesity has increased. And so, therefore, it's still one of the chronic illnesses that is top on our priority as healthcare providers to bring attention to. And it's happening to younger and younger people as we look at our population, it should be one of those things that we address early in life, because the younger you are and the earlier you have damage to your vascular system, the shorter, obviously, someone's life is going to be. So it's a very serious matter, and it needs to be drawn attention to. And cardiovascular can affect not only heart, but we start into having problems with stroke, cardiac flutter, all kinds of different things that can happen with it, peripheral issues as well. So high on our list of preventable things that we can do in our society. And Shawn and I learned in school some big studies that were put out about how cholesterol was the cause of the cardiovascular events. And the problem I'm addressing, or we are addressing today, is because we've seen the statins be out on the market for what, 30 years, 40
Right.
years?
Yep.
And you would think we would have made headway if we were putting everybody on cholesterol medications, that we would put a dent in what's happening with cardiovascular disease. And we really haven't. So it kind of brings a little bit of question mark to my brain as to whether or not it's really that effective. And so when we say that, we really need to know that, I don't know if cholesterol is the huge culprit. And we were taught that in pharmacy school, that, high cholesterol was the reason that we were having issues. And it might be because we're having high cholesterol, but why is that cholesterol being elevated? And just because we took the cholesterol level down in clients and patients over time didn't eliminate the disease. So um, there's a lot of question marks there in my brain. To say that cholesterol is bad for us when it's a natural thing that we need for every cell in our body, it's probably how that cholesterol is being shifted in our body as to whether it's a healthy shift or a bad shift. And so I just wanted to put that in the background of it. Cholesterol medications came from natural sources. We sell one in our pharmacy called red yeast rice, but it doesn't seem to affect clients as harsh as a statin does. And they have been around, I want to say red yeast rice has been around for as long as the medications have been made by
For
pharmaceutical
sure.
companies. I know that's kind of a long intro, but most Americans today, if they went to their doctor and they've hit 35 or 40, they're probably already on a statin. And so it affects a lot of people. So that's, kind of one of the reasons I wanted to give a baseline to that. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah. Well, she talked about red yeast rice, and red yeast rice has been used for decades and decades and decades, maybe centuries, for natural cardiovascular support. And as is true of most all drugs, drug companies find out that a drug is or a plant source has been used for years to treat certain diseases. I mean, aspirin is a great example. Aspirin comes from white willow bark that's been used for thousands of years to treat headaches and to treat fevers and pain. And the natives would use it in a tea mixture. They'd mix up the bark in a tea, and it would be used for those conditions. So Bayer Pharmaceuticals back in the 1890s thought, well, we're going to we're going to find out what the active ingredient is in white willow bark, and we're going to patent it, and we're going to make some money, and we're going to save a lot of lives. So, and this is just kind of talking about the whole history of the pharmaceutical industry, which is basically only 100 years old, really,
Right.
honestly. And now look at all the drugs we had to treat all these diseases. High cholesterol. High cholesterol was never a disease 50 years ago. So drug companies find a disease or find a problem and they try to treat it. So they came up with acetylsalicylic acid, which is aspirin. That's the active ingredient in white willow bark. Well, as we all now know, aspirin has a lot of side effects, from gastrointestinal bleeds to renal or kidney problems, all kinds of issues, whereas the white willow bark didn't. So anytime we try to isolate the active ingredient from a drug or from a plant and find out the one active ingredient in there, we don't know what we don't know. what other ingredients are in that plant to help prevent side effects, what other ingredients are in that plant to work synergistically, i.e., with that other drug at a lower dose to not cause side effects. So I think it's kind of will never ever solve the problem of, well, we want to know what the active ingredient is in that plant. And we just don't know because we don't know. We don't know. We only know what we're looking for. So we'll never ever be able to develop a drug, a single source drug from a plant without causing side effects. So red yeast rice, the active ingredient that, let's see, it was Merck Medco or Merck at the time in the 1980s, late 1980s, they found out that this active ingredient that helped lower cholesterol was lovastatin. And it is true, in red yeast rice, there is lovastatin. But when Merck isolated that drug from lovastatin and came up with Mevacor, it caused lots of side effects. It caused rhabdomyolysis, which is muscle pain, the breakdown of muscle, literally, and it also caused liver issues. It can actually, you got to get your liver enzymes checked because it can cause liver failure. There's been many deaths associated with statins and liver problems for sure. So, and then what happens? So lovastatin goes off patent because most medications, by the time they make it to market, they only have about 7 years of their patent left, and I think the drug from the time the chemical drug from the time it's discovered has a 15-year brand name exclusive patent. So after that, they can make generics, and usually it takes 7 years or so before the drug can even be put to market. So they only have about 7 years of being active on the market before they can before a generic will compete with it. So what do drug companies do? They think of a way to change the molecule just slightly, and so they can extend their patent basically on another drug. And that's why we came up with, what was the second one, Janet, after Mevacor?
Bravacol. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah,
of them
there's
that's right,
Crestor, Lipitor has been popular. So
right.
those are all statins now. Zocor is the one that
Mhm.
that Merck
Right.
came up with to kind of basically extend its patent for Mevacor. But they've been around for 30 years now, and they were the savior of cardiovascular disease. They were going to prevent all these heart attacks, and yet here we are, 30 years later. Americans are having more heart attacks than ever. So the answer, people, it's not statins, and I don't think the answer is cholesterol. What's the most dangerous thing we can do every day as an American, Janet?
Well, first of all, it's not moving, um, and I think that's one of the things that we need to do is we need to have healthy movement in our society. But there's other things that go into play here besides just movement, and stress is one of those things in our society that we're not dealing well with on many levels. And there's a lot of thought out there that inflammation is the root cause of the cardiovascular events, and that can be brought on by many different factors. And so many of these things people can control in their own lifestyle if they know or if someone has taught them. For example, if a person is not sleeping well, their inflammation in their body is off the chart. If they are not eating well, if they're not dealing with their mental issue or stress in their life in a healthy way, their stress level is high. So we come back to this simple hormone called cortisol in our body. Is it at a stressful level? And those are things that we can deal with without putting a pharmaceutical in our body. So I'm going to let you address some of those things.
Well, the most dangerous thing that we can do as an American, hands down, especially since cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in America, is to be overweight. Obesity has been associated with many different diseases, including cardiovascular mortality and morbidity. So, death from heart attacks and strokes are elevated when you are obese. So, I'm just a rational thinker here. So, you're telling me that you can be a couple hundred pounds overweight, and you can have type 2 diabetes, and you can have hypertension, and you can be a smoker, you can be a heavy drinker, and lowering your cholesterol by taking a statin is going to make you healthier and prevent cardiovascular disease. I'm not buying it. And I'll tell you guys, so drug companies are very good at marketing to doctors. And I talked to a doctor one time, And this is just proof that doctors don't treat they treat individual symptoms. They don't treat individual patients and the entire patient. They don't fix problems, they treat symptoms. So this doctor, and he's a typical doctor that is just, traditional doctor, just prescribe another drug for a symptom. He was telling me how death from cardiovascular disease can be lowered more from taking a statin than it can from stop smoking. So if you're going to tell a patient to pick one or the other, you should tell them to take a statin instead of stop smoking. Now, my guess is he's drinking the Kool-Aid fed to him from drug companies, because here's the whole problem with that. Even if it did, even if statins worked better to stop cardiovascular accidents than smoking did, isn't it pretty crazy to think that taking a drug is going to prevent more problems than stopping smoking? We all know how bad smoking is for us. Not even the heart attack issues, but lung cancer, and then the acute issues too. So many acute issues with breathing problems and stuff like that. So this is what we're dealing with in our traditional healthcare system. Doctors that think prescribing a statin is better than a patient stops smoking. Now, you tell me how that makes rational sense. I would love to hear from you guys. Please comment on our Facebook if you're seeing this live, and if not, if you'd like to chat with us, give us a call, 509-537-0411. We would love to chat with you. If you have any questions or comments for this show, Janet and I would love to chat with you. So Janet, go ahead.
So I just want to interject that I feel like some of the providers that we work with primary care and direct care, that are not caught up into just checking the box and writing a new prescription. We take into account that many lifestyle changes, which doesn't take you to the pharmacy to buy a new drug or to add a new drug to the regimen, actually takes the hard work of actually applying change to our life. But if you don't know that and someone isn't telling you these things, and you're being sold short, I believe, on your provider's end. So even just 10 pounds drops a unhealthy cholesterol down. But also lowering the stress in your body. If you're a diabetic, getting your sugar levels under control and your diet into a healthy range, it makes a world of difference. And it's, maybe we are making this sound way too easy, but little hinges, right? Little changes, getting proper exercise, getting proper sleep, eating properly, making whatever changes we need in our lifestyle to make those things happen, I believe all come together to make a healthier person. And that can even come down to, as we're aging, to make sure that we're balancing our hormones or our nutrition in our life. There's many easy things that you can do at home before you went down the road of going on something that has side effects. And it isn't just when we say side effects, it can be not just your muscles aching, but we have patients that, they're saying, I'm foggy, my memory's not working well, my hair is falling out, I don't feel like doing anything. I mean, to me, I would rather go down the route of making lifestyle changes before I invested in something that was going to have the side effects that could be very detrimental.
So Janet, talk about testosterone and thyroid, and as we age, how those hormones actually decrease, and then and they help to keep cholesterol in check. So talk about
Well,
that.
see, cholesterol is an important molecule in our body. We need to have that for the cell structure of every cell of our body. And every organism has to have cholesterol for that integrity of the tissue and the cells, and to make sure that structure is there. And as we age, there seems to be a shift of whether or not we are producing, whether it's caused by our way of life, our value system of how we live, or if it's just an imbalance that starts happening as we are going through the aging process. And I think what happens is we are not producing enough of the hormones that we need to get the messages to our tissue. We go into a survival mode. And so we have this overproduction that can happen, because it doesn't seem to be the case when we are making our hormones naturally at a good level. And it's not just testosterone, but it's also estradiol and thyroid, especially our active thyroid. And if we can get those into balance, we see many clients that can actually be taken off of some of their hormones, or not their hormones, but their cholesterol medications because they kind of go back into a natural level and are good. And that could be also just by losing weight. I've seen patients that have lost weight that they no longer are in that danger range. So it's stress on our adrenal glands and stress on our ovaries or testes. So we get to a place where we're not producing the hormones that we naturally need, such as thyroid, levothyroxine, or liothyronine, excuse me, testosterone, estradiol, and they're not getting to the tissue where we need them to do the functions they need to perform. For example, estradiol helps with the vascular health as well as our brain functions. Thyroid helps with all of that, and so does testosterone. Testosterone lowers the amount of abdominal fat that we carry, which is a marker for cardiovascular disease, because we start making more muscle and bone that are both better in our range of health of where we should be, rather than storing fat in our abdominal cavities.
Yeah, prescribing a statin, if you're on a statin, first of all, you need to have your hormones checked. And I think prescribing a statin without checking thyroid and testosterone, other sex hormone levels, is on the verge of medical malpractice, because that, we don't normally see high cholesterol until people get into their 40s and 50s.
Right.
And one of the reasons why is because those hormones have decreased in level. So,
Right.
Jen, oh, go
I
ahead.
got to interject. I didn't mention when we were talking about thyroid. A lot of people just think of thyroid as just thyroid, but thyroid helps with metabolism. So that's why we focus and say that, is because if your metabolism is going lower, then you're not using the nutrients in um, our processes of burning and energy and things like that. And also, if you are building muscle or maintaining muscle, then your energy levels are going to be better too. And I know that some people think that's very counterintuitive as we age, but it isn't until, or it hasn't been for most people until we hit that 40-year range, that we even look at someone's thyroid level, and that might be too late.
Janet, tell us about the story of your mom and taking statins.
Yeah, so my mom used to take a journey to visit my family and help Shawn and I out and spoil our kids. And she actually practiced as a nurse for many, many years. And of course, she believes in all the traditional Western medical routines, and because that's the part of the system she was in. And she actually ran out of her statin at her house and talked to me about whether or not she should refill it. Well, one of the conversations we had about it was, what was her level? Was it a level that really needed to be reduced? The other thing we talked about is the side effects that she was experiencing. She was losing her hair. She was having problems with the gait of being able to walk properly. She was also having fogginess in her thinking, and she was having issues with her. What else was it? I can't
Knee
remember.
pain, for
Oh
sure.
yeah, her knees, which she did have some problems because of weight, but yes, a lot of it was uncomfortable walking because of her knees hurting. And so she decided, you know what, while I'm at your house and visiting my sister on the coast, I'm just going to take a hiatus, because really stopping it wasn't going to make a difference as to whether or not, you know, something huge was going to happen at that point. And so she tried it, and lo and behold, by the time she got back home, she was feeling amazing. So the problem with her is that she was having side effects and didn't even realize it. She was just attributing everything that was happening to her as a effect of aging. And she had a lot more years of living left. I mean, she shouldn't have been feeling the way she was feeling at that point.
It's amazing when patients stop taking their statins, how much better they feel. I mean, there's people that are on chronic pain medications and they stop their statins, and their statins were the ones causing the chronic
Right.
pain. It's almost unbelievable that, we have used these drugs for 30 years and just almost put them, everybody we can, on them. I mean, if the drug companies would have their way, everybody would be on a statin. And you have to look at the whole picture. So if somebody has a cholesterol, I mean, and we're so black and white in traditional medicine. Somebody has a cholesterol of 200, they're they are fine. But if it's 201, oh, you need a statin. So I'm a perfect example. My cholesterol is a little bit high, 210 or so. So they would want to put me on a statin, but my triglycerides are super low, like 60, and my HDL is like 70, which is a good cholesterol. And obviously, I have no other risk factors. I'm not overweight. I'm not obese. I don't have diabetes, and I don't smoke, and the list goes on. So really, you're going to put me on a statin that's going to cause those kind of side effects? We have to treat patients, not labs. Every patient is definitely different, so we need to treat them that way.
So before I step out, I'm going to lead you into what the values are that are really important, such as the lipoproteins,
Yeah,
because I think particle size is something in the
yeah.
labs is
Go ahead.
really important for people to hear about.
Okay, I will go into that. And basically, what Jan's talking about is particle size, and um, we call it lipoprotein A and lipoprotein B, and they're different particle size. They're small particles that actually might cause the actual cardiovascular event. That's probably a topic for a whole nother subject or a whole nother podcast, because it's the lipoprotein B for bad. That's not really what it stands for, but that's how I remind myself is the one that might cause a cardiovascular event. But again, overall lifestyle is what's important. And we could also talk about relative risk versus absolute risk. When your doctor tells you that, statins have a 95% decrease in cardiovascular risk. Well, the way they do that is relative risk versus absolute risk. So let's say, for instance, out of 100 people in the placebo group, the non-treatment group, 2 people had a heart attack. And then in the treatment group, i.e. the statin group, only one person had a heart attack. Well, they could say that, that's a 50% reduction in cardiovascular mortality based on, 2 compared to 1, right? That's 50% decreased risk in cardiovascular events. But that's relative. In absolute risk, out of the 100 people, you had one less person that had a heart attack. So if it is statistically significant, it's a 1% chance that you might have less of a heart attack if you take a statin. And the numbers are something compelling like that. Now, there's other drugs that have come out over the last year or so that I can't mention on this program right now because we're streaming live on YouTube, but they have that same kind of relative versus absolute risk. So please do your own research on that. And stay tuned again for Dr. Leavitt to be on again so we can discuss more about statins. And I would appreciate you guys' comments, any questions you do have, or if anybody is on statins and they want to know more about it, please let us know. Again, don't forget to tune into our podcast tomorrow. You do not want to miss it. You are going to learn about how liberty is being stolen in this country. It's illegal to sing outside sometimes. Unreal. You get arrested for singing outside. So tune in tomorrow, 8 to 9 a.m. Gabriel Wrench on our podcast. You've been listening to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Thank you for tuning in.